You made it, Coda. Yeah, my camera wasn't working for some reason. It's really odd. Thought I figured it out. Delete all the inputs and re-add them. Thank you, sir. I'm going to see you in the morning anyway. Thanks for the sub, Hey, Suda. Oh, interesting. Yeah, this is I mean, obviously I'm going to get into it, but this is interesting, Coda. It's an interesting game, and I think it's almost maybe manga-like. I feel like Saturday morning cartoonish a little bit, though I don't think you're limited to playing it that way. But yeah, I'll talk about it. I think more than anything, I mean, I like the premise of it, but I think you're going to find that I find it really mechanically very interesting, especially the card engine for handling psychic powers. All right, sorry for the slight delay in getting started, but this is a game put out by Wet Ink Games, which they're known for a couple other games. Probably their biggest one is Never Going Home or Never Go Home, which is their World War One kind of supernatural Cthulhu game, which I own. It's super interesting. And the other bigger game that they put out is Heckin' Good Doggos. Now, I've been looking at this PDF for a while. I backed this on Kickstarter, and I finally got my physical copies, which has really kind of prompted me to do this. So, came in real nice book. Also came with some pretty cool dice and a deck of cards, and you'll see where this deck of cards comes from. Though you don't need, this is not a special deck of cards. This can be done with any 52 card, actually 54 card deck, because you need both jokers. So the premise is your players are children, preteens. And I think you can go, as young as you want, but probably wouldn't go any younger than 6. And you definitely want to stay like under 12, I think. And it starts off with these kids in a facility. So imagine the sterile white rooms, a la Stranger Things 11 type situation. And much like that, these kids really don't have a memory of where they came from and what their life was before the facility. Now, there is a little bit of a memory thing in here, and we'll kind of get to that when I dive into it some more, but that's the basic premise. That's how you're going to start your game, right? Then you'll need some sort of inciting incident that essentially kicks off the escape. So really the first thing that's going to happen in this game is the kids are going to have an opportunity and attempt to get out of this facility. Now, the title gives it away. These kids have psychic powers, or more specifically, each kid has a psychic power. So let's kind of dive in and flip through it a little bit. The resolution mechanics are interesting. The concept of dangers is something that we see a little bit in like an Apocalypse World or Forged in the Dark game. But and I call this the +1 system, which I guess is kind of the home system of wedding games. This is my first time really diving into it, and it is interesting. So let's flip through. Start off with, I think the art is nice. It evokes everything. So here's the cover. And, we start off with the buy-in premise. This is a role-playing game. This has psychic powers. This is about friendship and adventure. There is really no death in this game. There's not even like guns in this game. You have things like stun guns and handcuffs, to capture the kids with. But kids aren't going to get shot or cut to pieces or anything along those lines. I think you could do that in this system, but that's, again, trying to, play a game that's not built for that. This is built for, a specific type of story. I want to talk about skill rolls and how skills work, but I think to do that, I need to quickly flip to the end of the book and take a look at the character sheet, which, if you have watched any of my videos on how to learn new RPGs, this is usually the first place I go. When I get a new game, a new RPG that's using a system I'm not familiar with, I go to the character sheet first, because this tends to give me a context and an understanding around it. So you'll see you've got 3 main stats. We've got brawn, smarts, and guts. You can see that on the left-hand side. And there's the potential of 10 boxes, or a value of 10 in each one of these. You can also see there's a max and a current. So this is going to be spent, and we'll talk a little bit later how this attribute stat is spent. You also have training. So there's boxes under brawn. We have fight, sneak, and run. Find, know, and fix under smarts. Trick, befriend, and throw under guts. Again, pretty self-explanatory what those are. Nothing special there, but those have boxes as well. We'll talk about psychic powers a little bit later, but I think you need to see this idea of stats and training, where you've got stats and then things you're trained in within those stats to kind of understand this resolution system. So let's go back. So under the +1 system, you have got a target number. So let's say I'm going to fight a scientist inside of this facility, and I'm going to punch and kick this adult scientist to try to get out. So I've got a certain value in guts, which is the main stat. And let's say that I have 5 in guts. And then I have 3 in my fight. Now, that means I'm going to take, by default, 3 dice, because I'm using my fight. And I roll it, and on a 5 or a 6, I succeed. So 1, 2, 3, 4 is not succeed. 5 and 6 is a success. Very binary. It does mention that failure doesn't necessarily mean you don't accomplish what you want. It might mean there's going to be severe complications or things don't happen the way you want. You're always going to keep things moving forward. Now, I might have a target number on that scientist that's like 5 or 6. I've only got a fight of 3. So what am I going to do? Well, there's a couple things that you can do. One is, here you'll note before the roll. Now, let's say that I am untrained in fight. So I didn't put any points into fight. So I've just got 6 guts, and I put my other points into other different skills that wasn't fight. But now I'm in a situation where I need to fight. What I can do is I can spend one of those 6 guts to train me in fight. So I spend it, I go from 6 guts to 5 guts, and that allows me to add to fight. So now I am skilled in fight temporarily. Then we can add dice to the roll 1 for 1. So I could spend more of my guts to then add dice to my fight. So let's go to my original scenario. I've got 6 in guts. I've got 3 in fight. I'm facing a 5 target number. I'm not going to get that with 3 dice. So what I could do is say, okay, I'm going to spend 2 of my guts to add 2 die to this roll. So now instead of rolling 3, I'm going to roll 5. And my guts is going to go down by 2. The other thing, and that's before the roll, I can either train in a skill that I don't already have, or if I am trained in that skill, I can add dice to it. Then there's a bunch of other things I can do after the roll. So in this scenario, I've rolled 5 die, and let's say I got 3 successes. I need to get to 5. So after the roll, I can spend more of my guts towards fight to add pips to a die. So let's say I had a 3 in that roll. Well, I can make that 3 a 4 and then a 5 by spending 2 guts. I can upgrade it to a 5 by adding 2 pips to that roll. So now I'm spending more of my guts and putting it into the fight. I can also use it to re-roll any number of die just by spending what guts. I can just grab this and can do this once and roll. But the idea is I've got this pool in my stat of guts. I'm using fight, which is one of the skills, or one of the trained skills inside of guts. And before the roll, I can spend some of my guts to add dice. After the roll, I can add pips or re-roll using some of that guts. After all of that is done, my guts resets. It goes back to 6. So you're really encouraged to spend those because they're going to all come back anyway. Now, if I fail that roll, if I fail to meet that target number, after all of that, my guts drops from 6 to 5. So that's how we whittle down these stats. That's how we quote unquote take damage in this. Because we're not going to see, this is all player facing, player rolling dice. The GM never rolls dice. If I was in let's say I did that scenario where I'm going to punch and kick the scientist to try to get away from them. And I do all my machinations, spending my guts, and I still can't hit that target number 5. I'm going to drop guts from 6 to 5. That's going to be my maximum is going to drop there, right? Or my current's going to drop to that. And then narratively, that's the scientist gripping me or maybe pushing me to the floor and me being hurt by that. And to be clear, it says, normally you would lose on a failed roll, you would lose stat in what you were using. So in that case, I was using fight, so I would drop in guts. But I could also potentially narratively make more sense to drop it in smarts or something else, depending on what the circumstances is. So nothing too crazy, nothing too revolutionary. I find it interesting. In full disclosure, I have not played this yet, but I can see how this works. And I've already started to think about, from a build standpoint, how you could do something very, very interesting here, balancing out, because you get 3 stats. You've got, was it guts, smarts, and let's go back to the character sheet here. Let's talk through this. So I've got brawn, smarts, and guts, right? So under brawn, I've got between brawn, smarts, and guts, I have 10 points. And I can mark 10 of these boxes. So I could do 5 in brawn, 3 in smarts, 2 in guts. I then have an additional 10 to spend on training. And I could put them through here. So I could have 8 in brawn and spend nothing in training. But because I can spend that brawn to add the fight skill and then add dice to that fight skill, I could augment that. And I think it's interesting to see how you balance that out. Let's look at a filled out character sheet. I think it's on page 20. Because this will, I think, really help illustrate it. So here we have Max. He's got a 3 in brawn. You can see up at the top, a 1 in fight, a 2 in sneak. For him to use run, he would have to spend one of those brawn just to be able to use run. And then he could spend 2 more in brawn to add 2 die to run. Or if I had sneak already, which he does, I've got 2 dice that I get to roll for sneak. And I could spend some of that brawn to either add dice to it or add pips afterwards or cause me to, re-roll any number of dice that I want. Here in smarts, we can kind of see where this max person is. I mean, half of their 10 points they put into smarts, and they put 3 of their 10 points of training into find. But I can pick up no by spending a smarts, and I can pick up fix by spending a sparks. So I think that's interesting. I don't know how that plays, but I like the concept of it. It's not hard to explain. It's easy. Things reset. So you want to spend these smarts and guts, and during the build, you're going to want to think about, how do you want to balance this out? You're going to have to do some level of specialization, or you're going to be kind of mediocre at everything. And what are you going to be good at? But even if you're not good at everything, at some things, you can still gain some temporary skills in that. There's also, you're going to see kind of a group action, which I think that's where the system is pushing things, is don't do this alone, because you're going to want a friend to help you. You're going to want 2 or 3 kids rolling into this, not just the one kid. And thematically, that makes sense. These are children, and they're going against and running against adults, and in some cases, supernatural creatures. So mechanically, the system is doing what it wants you to do in play, which is do things as a group. So instead of me, my one character Max, trying to fight off this scientist as I'm escaping from the facility, I need Sarah and I need David to help me. And that's going to be my only chance to really get over that target number. So that gives you the basic premise of, how skill rolls work. Here's the group part, is this idea of challenge rolls, which is where you have a certain target number set, and the group rolls into that. So if I have my scientist with a target number 5 and I'm going to fight them, I might have Sarah come in, and maybe she doesn't use fight. Maybe she uses a different attribute or a different skill to do that. Or maybe she uses fight as well. And together, maybe we can reach that target number 5. Incidentally, the artwork for each of the types of powers is really interesting. They're kind of interlaced through this. I mean, that's just gorgeous art. Kind of that tarot feel to it. They break down things into narrative versus, what do they call them? Action scenes. Narrative scenes is where we're going to do a bunch of RP and exposition and things like that. Action scenes are what you think. And an action scene is when the GM presents a danger. And we'll talk about what that means and what a danger is. But they break that down between the two. Little note here on weapons, that weapons are not there. It explicitly says it's not a factor in the mechanics of the game. Agents use stun guns and handcuffs to recapture kids. Civilians will never use firearms or other lethal weapons against kids. While kids might encounter such things as sticks and rocks, these are considered part of the danger, and you'll see what that means a little bit later. Kids themselves may use a weapon of some sort, and in fact, the throw skill requires some type of projectile, but this does not add any additional effect to their attack. So this is meant to be a non-lethal game. Coda, I am not sure who the artist is, but let's see if we can't find out. Art, Sarah M.W. Miller and Stephen Wu. That's who they list as the artists. All right. Now we're getting into the cool part, and that is this power deck. So I mentioned the deck I got in the Kickstarter, and I just want to kind of quickly show it to you here. You can see backs of the cards are very simple. I'm having a hard time with my camera, right? And you can see on the front, it is just a standard deck of 52 cards. Boy, I'm struggling with my camera. And you can see it's got clubs, hearts, it's got all 4 suits. It's got all the way up from numbered to queens to kings. So again, you can use any deck. You don't need to, if this is not a special deck. I want to talk about what this is modeling before I get into the mechanics. All of these kids have powers. And much like 11 and Stranger Things, they don't have complete control over these powers. This is a bit of a chaotic thing that they have. And the list of powers are so cool. We'll go into them here in a second. Well, you know what's you're going to see here, Wookie Gunner, you're going to see a little bit of a Fate deck type thing happening here. But yeah, I agree. You take some of those weird games, Fate decks, and that could be super evocative at the table, especially if you use a Dirty Arcanist deck. You say, okay, I'm going to let's do something simple, telekinesis. I am going to try to do something. So the GM and the player say, okay, what is your goal? What you're going to use telekinesis. And this is how I like to, instead of saying, what is your goal? You'll find when I'm playing these types of games, I'm more saying, what does success look like? If you succeed on this, what does this look like? And if I say, if I succeed on this, it's going to take that vase of flowers here in the facility, and it's going to launch across the room and hit the scientist in the head. So I'm gonna telekinetically manipulate and send this flower vase into the head of the scientist. The GM says, "Okay, guess your power card." And the player goes, Queen of Hearts. And they flip the deck. Now, there's 3 cards that are going to give him a big success. Either of the Jokers, or if they flip the Queen of Hearts. Now, obviously, the chances of flipping the Queen of Hearts are very low. Even if you add the 2 extra Jokers, that's only 3 out of 54 cards. That gives us a awakening success. But check this out. You get degrees of success in these powers based on how close your guess is. So, the Queen of Diamonds is the guess here. You can see that in blue, right? Shaded in the lower right corner. If I guess Queen of Diamonds and I flip the 4 of Spades, nothing matches. It's not the same color. It's not the same suit. It's not the same rank. And it's not the same card. And that's going to happen just under 50% of the time. Now, what happens when I do that is that what I wanted to happen does not happen. I do gain an energy point, which I'll talk about what energy points a little bit later. So it's a little bit of a fail forward type thing here, but my psychic power doesn't work. And at the beginning, that's going to be half of the time, right? Because I'm just blindly guessing a card and I've got 54 cards that are in there and I have a 50-50 chance of getting anything on there. So on this 6 of Hearts, I'm going to match the color. So a color match, it says Annie's power works, but only just. She can move small objects with a bit of control. The power alone might not be enough to get her out of this jam, but on the other hand, the effects are small enough that most civilians won't notice anything unusual. So you get a super minor success if you just match the color, right? Which you have a 50-50 chance of doing that. Now, on a suit match, Queen of Diamonds was what I guessed, and I get an 8 of Diamonds. Her power works well. Although it's likely to have more than a few things go wrong, at this level, she has fairly competent control of her abilities and can move a decently sized object with a bit of control, such as flipping over a table. So really, just matching the suit, which you have a 1 in 4 chance of doing, is going to kind of get you what you were shooting for, right? Matching the rank. There's going to be 4 cards total, really only 3 other cards because the 4th card is the card you guess. There's 3 other cards in the deck. You got about a 7-8% chance of getting one of those cards. That's going to give you really greater control, right? So Annie has control over her power, allowing her to dictate the effects with a few drawbacks. She may manipulate most objects within range, although something like a car may only nudge a few inches. So it's going to give a sense of control and power. And then an exact match. Boom, that's she awakens. Not only does she accomplish what she asked for, but it's going to go beyond that. So this is going to be that big ba-ba moment, right? When 11's nose bleeds and everything comes together. Here's the kicker. That card I flip stays on the table. When the next person uses their power, not just me, because we only have one deck, they know let's say the 8 of Diamonds has been flipped. So they may not guess a red diamond card, let alone the 8 of Diamonds. So they might say Queen of Clubs. And as the kids are using their powers, more of these cards are going to be revealed, which means the pool of what they're going to guess is going to decrease in color, in rank, and for exact matches. And the idea is what it's modeling is as these kids are working together, as they're using their powers, they're starting to get more and more control over them. Their guesses are going to be more and more accurate, though they might have moments of just freak luck where it happens. If they flip a joker, that's the same as guessing the card. That's great, but then the deck gets reset. And I have been noodling this thing in my head since I got the PDF about, 8 months ago. And I think this really could model something special. I think this could create a really interesting experience at the table because as every kid is using more and more powers, we're seeing more and more cards revealed. We're going to have that occasional big hit where someone hits a rank, right? I guess the 8 of spades and we got the 8 of clubs. Like, whoa, that's going to be awesome. Or every once in a while, someone's going to guess the card and they're going to get it, but more cards get spread out on the table. You might want to organize them, right? By suit and rank and things like that. But the kicker is that when that joker gets flipped, that's the same as if I guess 8 of diamonds and I flip a joker, that's an 8 of diamonds. That's a wild. And I'm going to get that super mega awakening effect. That power is going to just kick ass all over the place. But then the deck gets reset. And I think that's really cool. That could be the kids being drained. That could be that when that joker hits, it's not just the kid using his psychic powers, but he may have drawn some of the psychic powers from his friends in order to be able to channel it and do that. I mean, narratively, I think you could create some unbelievable scenes that really fits the type of gameplay we're looking for, which is these kids working together through the power of their psychics and their friendship, escaping this facility and then, going out into the world. I'm really anxious to try this. I've got a feeling that, I think that +1 system with the dice and the spending of the different stats for your skills, that's interesting. I think that potentially could be fun, especially if you were to narratively talk about, pushing themselves in there. I think you could have fun with that. I think this is the juice though. I think this card system and the memory, the deck memory that's out there in this guessing could create some pretty powerful moments. All right, so let's talk a little bit more. So character creation, we've kind of talked about it a little bit. You've got brawn, smarts, and guts. You can spend 10 points total between those three. And then each one of the skills has three. Each one of the stats has 3 skills. You have 10 points to spread among those 9 skills. And then you figure out what psychic power you're going to have. There's introverted psychic powers, extroverted psychic powers. The introverted ones are dealing more with, internal supernatural senses. External ones are like telekinesis that are going to affect the world. Mechanically, there's nothing different between introverted and extroverted, but it might inform your character and the child that you're going to play, whether they take an introverted psychic power or an extroverted one. Your psychic powers can have power levels, and those power levels will be a function of how many of those points you accumulated. I just talked about one way you can accumulate those energy points is by failing a roll or failing a roll. And if you build that up, your power level increases. Everybody by default has a power level of 1, but if they get power level 2, they're drawing 2 cards and taking the best of the 2. And that's doing 2 things. One is doubling my chances because I'm drawing 2 cards instead of 1, but I'm also getting more cards on the board. So I'm going to be even helping my friends because they know that the 4 of spades has been flipped. They know the 5 of clubs has been flipped. They know the 8 of clubs has been split. They're not going to guess clubs. They're going to guess a red card. They're going to guess a heart or a diamond. And then they're going to stay away from the 4s and the 8s until we see that folded out, which is super interesting to me. Part of it is because I'm a card guy. If I find cards interesting, always have. Now, this I think is neat. And this is this idea of memories of safety. Every kid, every character is going to choose has a memory of safety. This is something they can't completely concrete visualize, but it was a time in their life that they were safe. The implication is this was before you were taken, right? Before the facility got its hands on you and stuck you into this white room and started studying you inside of the facility. So at the beginning of every run, you've got a memory of a safe place, and every one of the characters is going to give one distinct detail about that. That could be a smell. It could be a feeling, wet grass, something specific, right? And during play on the run, which is, a session, if they invoke that memory as part of what they're doing, somehow saying that me remembering a wet mud, in this instance, when I'm fighting in mud or however you want to do it, But whenever they choose, the memory is can be actually invoked for a bonus, and it works just like having an extra mark in guts or smarts. So they can invoke that to add a die or add a pip or do anything along those lines. But over time, this memory is going to get more solidified, because this is where the kids are trying to figure out where they're going to go. They're trying to figure out where they were safe. And as the more details add to these memories, as you work through and add more and more details over time, the eventual end game is that these kids hopefully get to that place, whatever that place is. And it might be a different place for each one of the kids. It might be the same place for all of those kids. This is what's pushing the children. This is what's pushing the kids to go out. Exactly, Coda. They're trying to go home. Love that idea. I think this could be, again, turn into something very, very powerful with the right table. All right. So energy points, psychic influence, and improvement. So you can pick up these energy points. I talked about one way is that when they fail to activate a psychic power, or if their kid awakens, either side of that spectrum, then they get an energy point. All players get a bonus energy point the first time the group overcomes a danger of threat level 12 or higher. I'll talk about dangers later and the threat levels, but the first time they overcome that, everybody gets an energy point. The narrator may also award a bonus energy point to any player they feel made an exceptional contribution to the session. So they're going to be accumulating these energy points. Think of them like experience points. If the play session didn't give players much opportunity to use their powers, instead players may each pick a moment they enjoyed and give another player an energy point for making moment happen. As these energy points build up, they can be spent, right? In the same way I talked about, I can spend it to move pips, to re-rolls. I can use all of those things. But as it increases, I start to up my power level. So when a kid has 20 energy points, they're now at power level 2. So they're going to be drawing two cards. So it's kind of it's an advantage not to spend them. If I get to 30 points, then I get to draw 3 cards, which is, I would imagine, be super powerful in play, just mechanically doing the numbers. You can spend them to improve your skills and your attributes, as well as your psychic influence. And your psychic influence dictates how many energy points you can spend on a roll. So by default, everybody has a psychic influence of 4, which means I can only spend 4 energy points to influence a roll. If I increase my influence, then I can spend more points of energy points as we go. All right, let's talk powers. So you've got astral travel. This is an introverted. Astral travel, also known as astral projection, allows a kid to separate the psychic self from the physical self. This allows the kid to witness events happening in vast distances. For this reason, astral travelers make excellent spies. I'm skipping through it. I'm only going to skim. The primary limitation of astral travel is distance. This power manifests as a silvery thread stretching from the kid to the location of their psychic self. Uniquely, astral travel slightly crosses in the line between introverted and extroverted. When awakened, a kid can not only view events happening anywhere in the world, but they may even slightly manipulate the physical world at that location. So this is a good example of, I've got astral travel, and depending on how accurate my flip is to my guess, will dictate how far I can go in this astral travel. And if I awaken and guess it or get a joker, I might be able to have my astral projected self manipulate what I'm watching. I think I would also have this a function of time. I think I would have a function of how clear that is, right? So if I'm projecting out to 2 rooms away and I might, I only get a color match, then maybe I get a vague view of it. It's fleeting. It doesn't last very long. But if I had flipped better, then maybe I would have gotten a very clear picture of it, or maybe I've been able to extend outside of the facility. I think you get the idea. Clairvoyance. While precognition offers vague visions of the future, clairvoyance provides visions of the present. By focusing their powers, kids with this gift can find hidden objects, secret past, or even sense the psychic echoes of things that happened in the recent past. This power is well suited to kids who favor investigation and exploration. Emphakinesis, a rare trait according to the facility's research. Emphakinetic kids are able to psychically manipulate the emotions of others. Kids who have this power are acutely aware of the mood of people around them, and by tugging the right mental strings, they can enhance, suppress, or even introduce an emotional state. I just think these powers are cool. Precognition, we know what that is, also known as second sight. Precognition is the ability to see glimpses of the future. Psychoseia, one of the rarest psychic powers. Psychoseia, that's how I would pronounce it. I don't know if that's how Psychaceaea, Psychoseia, is the gift of healing. A kid with this power could focus their mental energies on to close wounds, mend broken bones, and even purge sickness from the body. So that's your healer. Pyrokinesis, we know what that is, right? Fire, the ability to create and control fire. Technopathy, only recently identified by the facility. Technopathic kids have the special sense for electronics. They're able to sense the electromagnetic waves and make up radio and television broadcasts. With focus, they can even tune into these waves and pick up some of the information carried. Telekinesis, we've kind of talked about that. The most common form of psychic power. Telekinesis is the ability to move objects with one's mind. Telepathy. Telepathic kids have the ability to read the thoughts of those around them. Teleportation, the incredible ability to instantaneously move objects or beings without covering the space in between. So I'm going to talk about this leash here in a second. Zoopathy. Zoopathy are kids who can understand and communicate with animals on a psychic level. So those are the powers. I think, you get 3 or 4 players, and how they combine those powers, I think it'd be really, really cool. And it's invoking that, like I said, that Stranger Things, that Disney Saturday afternoon movie, Escape from Witch Mountain. If you're as old as I am, that's kind of the feeling I'm getting from this. And it is not a bunch of superpowered children. This is not a supers game. This is kids who have these powers. They don't have total control over them. They don't know who they are. They have these memories of safety, these memories of home, and they're trying to escape this experimentation that they're in. I think this is really, really fertile ground. I can anticipate maybe them coming out with new psychic powers, or even the table coming up with new psychic powers. So I think that selection is pretty damn good. All right, so when big things are happening, that is going to be a danger, right? So when dangers happen, it's going to have a certain danger level. So for example, if I encounter a scientist, they might have a danger level 5. And what we want to do at the table is we want to whittle that danger down to 0. When it gets to 0, that person or that thing or whatever it is no longer a danger. And it's going to be through successful use of my powers will shave off the danger level. Me successfully rolling and attempting using my skills will shave that off. And as those numbers go down, we narratively talk about how the danger is getting less and less and how it's going away. So, I'm not, if I do something very powerful, maybe I, knock a scientist unconscious, that could shave off, 4 or 5 points of that danger. I could get rid of that danger completely. Whereas if I knock them down, maybe that takes 2 points off of the danger. But the idea is that you're going to whittle it down. The way I've kind of put it into my head is it's a little bit like a clock, right? In an apocalypse world, or Forged in the Dark game, where you have a clock, and when you fill that clock, you accomplish what you're trying to do. And they give there's a whole section on this. They give some really good examples of how to set the dangers and how to deal with dangers, and how what the kids do narratively will inform how much of that danger they've reduced. What you're not doing is you don't have hit points, you don't have damage. Everything is handled from a target number to accomplish it, and then to whittle away at these danger levels. And when these kids when you get to action scenes, that's when they're facing one of these dangers. Here it kind of goes over. Oh, I didn't talk about the leash. So this leash is a real interesting little thing where it's an experimental subdermal implant that can dampen psychic powers. There's some really interesting little ideas in here if you want to start the kids off wearing a leash. And maybe that's the first thing, is that they need to get rid of these leashes or get these leashes taken out of them. That could be something, happens very soon. And what they talk about is essentially the leash will downgrade, right? So if I get a rank match, it becomes just a suit match. If I get a suit match and my guess, then it only becomes a color match. And color matches don't mean anything. Kind of cool. All right, so let's talk about the facility a little bit. So field agents, you can see if I encounter a field agent, it's got a threat level of 10. So I need to get that 10 to a 0 before the field agent is no longer a threat to me. That's no longer a danger. And the target numbers are pretty easy. And they essentially say, combine whatever the threat is going to use, combine their skill and their stat to figure out what the target number is. So if I'm going to fight a field agent has a brawn of 4 and a fight of 2. I've got a target number 6. So I've got to beat that target number 6. Likely I won't be able to do it on my own. I'm probably going to need some friends. Scientists, lower threat level, and here's the stats: the smarts, the guts, and all 3 of the skills. Real easy though to figure out those target numbers, right? If I'm going to try to run away from a science agent, well, their run is 1, their brawn is 3. That's going to be a target number 4. I'm going to need to beat a target number 4 to successfully run away from them. And then here you've got a facility special agent, threat level 15. The director who runs it is got a threat unknown. So that's your big bad, right? Here's what they call the else. And this is where we are discovering that there are changes, not only manipulations, the kids have become psychic, but around the facility and the areas, things have gotten wonky. And this is where you see like supernatural dangers. So they have things like wisps and maddening fog, which has a threat level 8, a mystery spot. So this is a location that has a threat level of 10, a rogue psychic. They really give some neat ideas for some supernatural stuff that they can encounter while they're, once they get out of that facility. Or maybe this is something that's escaped from the facility. So maybe the facility is not only testing and working on these children, but it's doing things to others as well. It gives you civilian threat level. So a cop is a threat level 6, a server threat level 3, teacher, bully, loner, nosy reporter threat level 5. This I thought was really nice, is it puts threat levels around environmental dangers. Wookie says, but does it have rules for a talking dog? It does not, Wookie, but I think that could be pretty badass. But if we have, someone takes that zoopathy, whatever it was, psychic power, I could see a companion coming into play there. But these environmental dangers are kind of neat, right? So a bad weather could be threat level 8 to 16. Like if these kids are out in the woods escaping the facility and you introduce a thunderstorm or a snowstorm, and you could say this is threat level 8. And you guys have got to take care of this threat level, or it's gonna take you. And so it's not just monsters. It's not just these facilities or civilians that are going after these kids. They've got disasters, wild animals, so on and so forth. They've got in the back of the book, they've got some really nice adventure hooks. They even give a multi-part, like 3, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, for ways to kind of get things started. So if you are like me, you like to see scenarios, you may not use them, you may start with them. This gives you kind of a feel of the type of play this is built for. So part 1 is the room. Part 2 is escaping the facility. Part 3 is getting to the great outdoors. And then maybe in the next segment, they're out in the woods and they have a lovely day for a swim. They encounter strange waters. And then part 3 is come sail away, and they just continue. that's pretty much it. There's a nice full-on adventure that happen in the back too that happens once they've escaped the facility. So the kids have successfully gotten out of the facility. They've maybe gone to a town near the facility. They're in hiding. This redacted adventure in the back is for that situation. So not just the initial play, but the play once the kids get out here and they're starting to look for their memory of safeties, and they're getting closer and closer to those safety things. This redacted scenario I think is really interesting, and I think I would do a form of that if I were to run that. But that's the game, and I gotta say, I was reading the, like I said, I was reading the PDF, kind of put it down for a while, but that was a skim. Sitting down and really reading through this, I'm starting to imagine what play looks like. And if you know me, that's my big thing. The way that games get to this channel when we do actual plays is I have to imagine play. I have to know what it's going to look like. So there's a lot of games that I want to play. Star Trek Adventures is a game I want to run, but I haven't quite figured out how I would run it and what it would look like if I did it. Broken Compass is another game that has been high on my list. I want to play and run Broken Compass, but I haven't modeled play in my head. I haven't found the center of play when I'm running it versus games that we are running on the channel. Like when I ran the Shiver game just recently, that Cap Carnage slasher scenario, I knew what I was going for. I could see play. I could imagine scenarios and situations and moments that could happen in play. And once I get to that point, that's more important to me even than the rules, right? That I need to visualize play as a GM before I'm going to sit down and I'm going to learn this game, practice the game, and then bring it to the table. I think you can expect Psychic Kids to come to this channel because I really have a clear sense and a clear feel for I think what this game looks like and the way that I would run this particular game. So very, very quick. This is Wet Ink Games. If you're watching this video on demand, you can find the link to the PDF for this. I'm writing as of right now, it's $8. And I showed you those cards. I'm going to put the link for those of you that are live. Yes, there's my affiliate link at the end of that. So I'm going to get a penny or two if you use that affiliate link. It's $8. It's on sale as I'm recording this. I don't know if that's a normal thing for them. But I've also got that link in the video on demand. So if you go to the description of this video, if you're watching it on YouTube, there's that link there. If anything I talked about was interesting to you, I think you might enjoy this game. I think there's worse way to spend $8 or $10 than to look at this. So this is on my recommend list, and it's on my Craig's going to get it to the table list. Hope you had fun. I appreciate you guys watching live. Talk soon. Howdy friends, thank you for watching. All our content is archived and organized in playlists on the Third Floor Wars YouTube channel. Check it out. And if you could like, follow, subscribe, and even set your notifications to this channel on YouTube and Twitch, we'd appreciate it, and it'll make sure that you catch all of our content. I talk with creators, designers, and experts across the gaming landscape in every episode of our podcast, Tabletop Talk. Open up your favorite podcatcher and search for Tabletop Talk from Third Floor Wars. Support your creators. They make the content you love, and it's your support that makes it happen. If you want to help us, go to Third Floor Wars on patreon.com, and you can help us for as little as $1 a month. Thanks again. We'll see you next time. Take care.